Hey everybody, this is Amanda Godsey coming to you today to discuss possible further college football realignment, what's happening with the ACC, where this could possibly leave Pitt, and kind of where things stand right now. So I'm going to try to differentiate while I'm during this podcast between what we actually know, what has been reported, and what are kind of rumors. So what we actually know right now, we know that the ACC is not happy with its current agreement, its grant of rights agreement with ESPN that does not expire until 2036. So they've got another 13 years under this current agreement. The ACC is not happy with it because the member schools are not receiving payouts that is anywhere close to what the SEC and Big Ten member schools are receiving. So, for example, from 2020 to 21, now these are numbers that have been reported, is that the SEC paid each member school around $54.6 million to each school. They have 14 schools in the conference, just like the ACC does. For the same year, the Big Ten reportedly paid out $54.3 million to each of its member schools. The ACC that same year paid out around $36 million to each member school. That was a record year for the ACC. That also included the college football season, I should say, where Notre Dame was a full ACC member. They played a 10-game conference schedule in 2020 due to the pandemic. So that's obviously a pretty wide gap. They're about $20 million behind each member school, what the SEC and Big Ten member schools are making. That gap is about to become a widening chasm after the SEC and Big Ten both signed TV deals worth billions with a B, in the last year. So the grant of rights, a lot of people, lawyers, legal minds, that is not me. I don't know anything about that. But it has been reported that it is ironclad. There is no way to get around it. So there have been talks and pushes, certainly from Clemson Athletic Director Graham Neff and Florida State's Athletic Director Michael Alford have both come out and said their schools need more money. They want to go to an unequal revenue distribution model. And there has been discussion about that being a possibility. Clemson and Florida State see themselves as brands. They are. They've both been to the college football playoff and won a national championship since the CFP model came into being. Basically, this would be more of a performance-based model where teams that do better make more money, which fine, that makes sense. But now, from these spring meetings that are occurring right now, both Ross Dellinger and Brett McMurphy have reported that there is a group of 7 ACC member schools who are calling themselves the Magnificent Seven. I don't know if that's meant to be ironic or not, because the Magnificent Seven all died. So I'm not sure if that's meant to be ironic, or they think it's actually clever. Like, hey, Magnificent Seven, we're magnificent. There's 7 of us. I have no idea. McMurphy has reported those 7 schools are Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Virginia, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, and NC State. So that they want to explore other options, possibly including dissolving the ACC as it exists right now. If there is no ACC, then there is no grant of rights. Now, I'm recording this around 4 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon. There was a rumor swirling earlier. Again, this is a rumor that Louisville could possibly be the 8th school, which would be the 8th vote needed to dissolve the conference by a simple majority. I would assume these other schools, if they are voting to dissolve the ACC, that they have found new homes. I don't know where those homes would be. I can't really see the SEC choosing to take on 8 ACC members in addition to Texas and Oklahoma that will be joining in 2024. So maybe some of these schools could wind up in the Big Ten. I don't know. Doesn't make sense from a regional standpoint, but, you know, Big Ten just added 2 schools from Los Angeles. Clearly anything goes. College football is becoming less and less of a regional sport. What does this mean for the 6 teams left behind, or at least the 6 teams that, as far as we know, it has not been reported that Pitt, Syracuse, Boston College, Georgia Tech, Duke, or Wake Forest want the ACC to break up. They apparently are, do not, or again, it has not been reported that they are one of this in this group of Magnificent Seven or Hateful Eight or whatever you want to call them. So I don't know where it leaves these schools. I'm not sure where Pitt winds up in all of this. Ideally, Pitt needs to remain a Power 5 school. Does that happen? I don't know. I know that if they wind up in a group of 5 conference, I think that's a failure. No, I don't think it's a failure. It's a failure. I don't know from a logistical standpoint right now what Pitt's options are. I think that the play here would probably be, nobody likes this. I don't like it. But I think, well, if I'm Heather Lyke, I'm on the phone with every other conference right now, right? Like, I'm putting feelers out literally everywhere. You can't get left behind. We saw this with the last major conference realignment that led to Pitt and Syracuse joining the ACC. So Pitt is not going to want to be left behind and wind up in like the MAC or the American Conference or Conference USA or something like that. I think the most likely scenario, if Pitt is to remain a Power 5 school, which again, I think they need to, and I don't believe that Heather Lyke or the administrators at Pitt will allow the school to fall into a group of 5. But again, it's not totally up to them. I think what the most likely outcome would be is probably for Pitt to wind up in the Big 12. I know nobody probably wants to hear that. I don't love it either. From a travel perspective, it's not great. Pitt also does not fit in with the type of football that the Big 12 is known for. These high-powered, air raid offenses, Mason Rudolph passing for 500 yards and scoring a bunch of points and nobody plays defense. I mean, that is completely antithetical to everything that Pat Narduzzi stands for. But it makes sense in terms of West Virginia is already in the Big 12. You could get the backyard brawl back on an annual basis, or at least until the next college football realignment in 2030 or 2035, whatever. But you would get the backyard brawl back. It's Pitt's oldest rival. They've played West Virginia more than any other team. So that would be a plus. That's something that could be attractive. Cincinnati's going to the Big 12 this year. That's another old Big East team. Could dust off the old River City rivalry with Cincinnati. Not bad from a travel perspective. UCF is also joining this year. Now, Florida's not exactly close, but Orlando's a 2-hour plane ride away. Plus, they do have a little bit of recent history with UCF. They played them twice in 2018 and 2019. 2019, of course, was the infamous Pitt special game where Kenny Pickett scored a walk-off receiving touchdown to beat number 15 UCF by a point. So there are some teams in the Big 12 that it would make sense for Pitt to play. Now, I think from a regional and a logical standpoint, the most sense would be to go to the Big 10. Do I think that's ever going to happen? No. The Big 10 already has the Pittsburgh TV market because Penn State's in the Big 10. I don't think Penn State will go to bat and try to get Pitt to join. I just don't see that. Heather Lyke does have some contacts in the Big 10, of course. She worked there for years. She worked under Gene Smith for years. Gene Smith might be the most powerful athletic director in the Big Ten, but I still just don't see it happening. From a regional perspective, it makes a ton of sense. Do I think it will happen? Absolutely not. I really don't see it. The only way I could possibly see it happening, and there's like a 0.1% chance I could see this happening, is if Notre Dame's going to join the Big Ten and for some reason would go to bat for Pitt and say, these are our historic, some of our historic rivals. I don't see that happening. I think that Notre Dame is going to remain independent until they hear the death knell, and then they are going to jump in probably the Big Ten. I don't know that that's going to happen anytime soon. And again, I don't really see, Notre Dame trying to drag Pitt with them into the Big Ten happening. I give that a very small chance of happening. So the SEC really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I've seen some people maybe try to convince themselves that both the SEC would want Pitt and that it makes sense. I don't know if the SEC is going to want to come this far north. I honestly could see the SEC maybe wanting to expand into Virginia and North Carolina. I don't know that I see Pitt winding up in the SEC, and I don't really want Pitt in the SEC, and I'm not entirely sure why Pitt fans would. The SEC, Pitt has been in the ACC. They've been to the conference championship game twice. They've won the conference once. They're a good, they're around an 8-win team in the ACC. That number would go down in the SEC. That's another reason why I think the Big 12 could make sense for Pitt. I think the Big 12, Pitt could be one of the better programs in the Big 12. They could possibly compete, semi-regularly for the conference championship. And that would give them an automatic playoff berth when the playoffs expand. So the Big 12 makes sense to me in that respect too, in terms of the level of competition Pitt would be facing in that conference. Again, we don't know where any of this is going. It sure does not seem like the ACC is long for this world. I can't... I was on a podcast, a Notre Dame podcast, One Foot Down. You should check it out if you haven't. Just in general, check out their podcast and their Twitter account. They're a lot of fun. I was on a podcast with Josh, the host, last week, and he had asked me about the ACC and realignment and where does Pitt fit in. And I'm talking about it, and I'm thinking, man, I hope that talk is shelved. I thought, we're going to go to the unequal distribution model, whatever. Nobody's going to be happy, whatever. But, I keep hearing the grant of rights is ironclad. And then, of course, this steam starts to build literally in the last 2-3 days that there's talk of dissolving the conference as we know it. I can't believe Pitt is back here. It's been 10 years since they joined the ACC. Here we are again with Pitt trying to make sure that they are not the ones left behind. It's going to be interesting. I don't know what happens. I don't know where we go. This is uncharted territory, at least in terms of the conference talking about actively dissolving. This is very different from USC and UCLA leaving the Pac-12 or Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12. We are talking about the ACC just not existing anymore. Of course, this would happen literally less than 2 years after Pitt wins the ACC. Of course it would happen. We all had to see the writing on the wall, right? Pitt was good in football in 2021. They win the conference. They have another 9-win season this past year in 22. The basketball team makes the tournament while North Carolina sits at home. And now the ACC is going to cease to exist. If you did not see this coming, then you are not a real Pitt fan. I'm going to just say that right now. You had to know. You had to know the success was going to come with a condition. You just had to know. You just had to know that there was going to be some sort of caveat for Pitt finding success in multiple revenue-generating sports. I tweeted this earlier. I'm still really salty that, Pitt's been 10 years in the ACC. There's no Bojangles. There's no Zaxby's. There's no Cookout anywhere in the greater Pittsburgh area. I don't know what all of this was for. Sure, we got the conference title. Kenny Pickett broke ACC records. Yeah. Where is Zaxby's? There's supposed to be a Zaxby's. I don't know why that wasn't in the contract. There's like this grant of rights deal that lasts for eternity. Like, seriously, eternity. And Pitt couldn't get it written in the contract that a Zaxby's would move to the greater Pittsburgh area. I just don't understand anything. I don't know what any of this was for. We had to sit through years, literal years, of alien tape and copper fit insole thing ads on the ACC network, and we didn't even get a Zaxby's out of the deal. Not one. Not a single Zaxby's anywhere in this area. Pitt always gets the short end of the stick, man. They just always get the short end of the stick. 10 years in the ACC, no southern fast food joints have made their way north. It's just sad to think about what could have been. So I guess I will leave you with my wistful feelings about the lack of Zaxby's in the greater Pittsburgh area. I have not heard or seen any new rumors or news or anything to report since I began recording this. I will keep you updated. You can follow me at Amanda F. Godsey on Twitter and subscribe to my YouTube channel here. That would be greatly appreciated. I'll have an article or a column coming out about this in the next few days about the ACC realignment, where Pitt fits in. I write for the Johnstown Tribune Democrat. You can go to tribdem.com, tribdem.com, and look for it there. And again, follow me on Twitter, Amanda F. Godsey, Godsey, on Twitter. So stay tuned, and we'll see what happens over the coming days, weeks, and months with the ACC, and if it's still a conference in the very near future. Anyway, thanks for listening, and have a great night, everyone. See you later.